Forecasting is an important tool for any healthcare manager. So what are we talking about? This kind of forecasting? No, I don't think so. We're talking about, of course, economic forecasting. Remember that any tool, and that's what forecasting is, should be flexible and allow prudent management to respond to changes in the environment. Also remember that, at least in the case of our discussions here, when we look at forecasting, we're going to be forecasting sales and not necessarily revenue. Of course, the two can go hand in hand, but right now we're going to limit our discussion to forecasting sales. What could that be? Well, it could be number of units sold, and those units could be pharmaceutical drugs, they could be medical instruments, they could be hospital visits or clinical visits. So again, kind of a wide variety. But again, it's a unit of production or sales that are achieved in the marketplace. All right, so what are we going to be looking at as far as the tools of forecasting today? We're going to be looking at 4. The first one is we're going to be looking at percentage adjustment with demand theory. So we're bringing back our old friend demand theory. The next method we're going to be looking at is price and income elasticity. Number 3 is the very difficult and highly computational naive forecast. Please note my sarcasm there. Don't worry, this one is very easy. And number 4, we're going to be looking at the 2-period moving average. But before we go into that, let's talk briefly a little bit more about forecasting. So why do we forecast? Well, it can help us with pricing decisions. Should we increase our prices or maybe even lower our prices? But if we do that, that could have staffing implications. Maybe now that we've lowered our prices, we're going to have more visits within the clinic, or we're going to sell more of a certain medical device. Do we have enough production capability to do that and people working on the assembly line to make those medical devices? Or do we have enough nurses or radiologic technologists in clinic that would handle an influx of patients? So it can help us with staffing decisions. Also, should we launch a product or not? This is very important, especially in the drug industry, where when drugs, especially coming off patent, then we'll be going generic, and a drug company wants to look at, should we reformulate our drug and launch a new one? Or should we continue with the same drug, maybe at a lower price? Again, forecasting can help you with all of these basic things that you could face in your environment. So what are the characteristics of good forecasts? Well, first, they should be easy to understand. Not too convoluted. What they predict should be readily understandable by both management and administration. 2, they should be easy to modify. Again, changes in your environment, you should be able to modify your forecasting methods. 3, they should be accurate. That means they contain the most probable actual values. 4, they should be transparent. What does that mean? Transparent means that how these forecasts were derived could be easily explained to other individuals, especially if you're sitting in front of a board and you're explaining your forecasts. The process should be relatively transparent, not too convoluted. And then lastly, they should be precise. And this differs from accurate in that it should give analysts very little wiggle room as possible. So it should be a pretty tight value of what they're forecasting. Now, let's look at those 4 methods of how we are going to forecast, kind of our 4 tools, if you will, for forecasting. The first one we're going to look at is percentage adjustment with demand theory. So, best way to look at it is with a question or a scenario. You estimate that the price elasticity of demand for clinic visits is a negative 0.25. Now remember that price elasticity is really how demand responds in relationship to price. And that elasticity number, going back maybe to your high school algebra, and geometry is a slope, and we have a negative number. So here our price elasticity is a negative 0.25. Okay, now you anticipate that a major insurer will increase the copay from $10 to $20. Wow, big increase. The insurer covers right now 80,000 visits. So right now you're seeing 80,000 visits a year from that particular insurer. What is your forecast of the change in the number of visits? Okay, so how do you set this thing up? Well, again, the elasticity is a negative 0.25, and the copay is going from $10 to $20. That's a $10 increase. Again, pretty simple math here, but you want to figure out, is it an increase or decrease, and then how much? The next thing you want to do is, what is the percentage increase that is happening, or decrease? This problem can be set up the other way, but in this case, it's an increase. So you're going up $10, and your original price was $10. So you have the amount that you have increased or decreased by on top, or that is your numerator, and then below that you have your original price, which is your denominator of $10. You do the division on it. This one's pretty easy. It comes out to a nice number 1. And remember that 1, or 1.00, in a percentage term is actually 100%. So these guys are increasing their copay 100%. Okay, wow. So what is this going to do? All right, so now it's pretty simple. You take your elasticity, which you already know, times the percentage increase or decrease. Again, it could be set up either way. You multiply the two, and then you come up with a number. In this case, we have 1, so it's very easy. So our price elasticity times 1 still equals a negative 0.25. What do you do with this number? Well, remember, we still need to figure out the impact in the number of visits. So what's the change? Take that price elasticity times, again, the percentage change of the price itself. Multiply that times your number of visits, and you get a negative 20,000. So you are going to have a drop, a negative drop of 20,000 visits because of this impact. So pretty significant impact. So remember, with this kind of a plug and chug method, please be careful when you are setting up the section on the percentage increase or decrease. Again, that could be a negative or positive. And then when you do your multiplication, like on that lower line, negative 0.25 times 80,000, again, it came out to be a negative 20,000. So you know it's a drop. In some cases, it could be an increase. So know that if you see a formula or question like this, these are the steps in order to solve that. Okay, our next weapon or arrow in our quiver of forecasting is price and income elasticity. We're going to involve both of those. So with this type of scenario, we have, well, you in this case, we have a forecast of Medicare visits equals this demand function. And if you see that it equals 10 minus 2 times the copay plus a 0.02 times income. All right, so what are we seeing in this particular formula? Well, the first one is price elasticity. The copay portion right there, the 0.2 times copay. And then the second part of that formula is the income elasticity. So we're involving both of these two variables in this decision. So the next part is that the copay is $20 and the income is $50,000. What volume of visits would you forecast? Okay, well, we set up our formula. We simply plug in the information that we are given for the price and the income. We simplify the formula a little bit more. Be careful for the minuses that are going to show up typically in this type of formula. So we have 10 minus 40 plus 1,000. Again, collapse that all together, and we are now going to get 970 visits. So pretty cool. We were able to use price and income elasticity. In this case, would it be given to you? And should it be on any quiz or final, that information would be given to you in this type of formula. All right, so let's look at another price and income elasticity equation. All right, so now you forecast that Medicare visits are 10 minus 2.0 times the copay. Okay, it looks very similar, right? Same formula. Now the copay is $20 and the income is, again, $50,000. What would the effect be of a $5 decrease in the copay have? So we're basically taking that formula, that problem we just did, and now going to see what happens. Okay, let's lower that copay. Let's see what the impact is. Okay, so you have number of visits, and what we're going to now do is calculate with the new copay. The new copay has gone down to $15. Again, we're going to do the math just like before. The 2.0, that negative 2.0 times 15. Then we're going to do the 0.02 times 50,000. Can kind of collapse that all together. 10 minus 30 plus 1,000. We now get 980 visits, and that is an increase by 10 visits. If you remember on the previous formula where we just had that $20 copay, we had 970 visits. So now we know that should we decrease that copay a little bit, we're going to get some more visits. Okay, let's look at our next scenario. Okay, get the calculators ready for this one. The naive forecast or forecasting method. Okay, so we've got sales listed here. Again, it could be hospital visits or medical devices sold. Could be anything. All right, so we got sales listed of 80, 82, 88, 84, 89, 85 during the last 6 weeks. Okay, so the naive forecast for the next period would be, drum roll please, 85. With the naive forecast, all you do is take the last period numbers and just extend that to your next period. This particular forecasting method it can be fraught with a lot of problems. Again, we're not taking into account any kind of trends, any specific incidents that could have happened in that last period that maybe were out of the norm. I mean, imagine if that last period was a great period for, reasons that were outside of your control, I should say, and your numbers were fantastic, and all of a sudden you forecast you're going to have another fantastic period, and all of a sudden you don't make your numbers. So be very careful when using this method if you use it at all. Perhaps a better method than the naive forecast is the 2-period moving average. This is kind of nice because what it does is it sort of smooths out any unusual blips that can happen whenever you use a moving average. Now remember, each one of these methods has its pluses and minuses, so do keep that in mind. No method is exactly perfect. Okay, but let's look at the 2-period moving average. Okay, so we have sales have been 80, 82, 88, 84, 89, 85. Look pretty familiar, right? During the last 6 weeks. Okay, the 2-period moving average forecast for the next period is, well, all you do is you just take the last 2 periods and you're going to want to find the average for that. Again, 89 plus 85 divided by 2 is 87. Final thoughts on this whole forecasting method and these tools that you have available to you. Well, remember that any forecast is going to have to use history and judgment. Again, history isn't perfect, and neither is judgment, but you are going to have to employ both of those two. it's going to apply to a given period of time. So remember that it has to be a discrete period of time, a defined period of time. And that period of time should be short term. Well, why not long term? Why not know what's going to happen in 5 to 10 years? The further you go out in your predictions, the more variability and risk and inaccuracy is going to be naturally inherent in any type of forecasting. So keep it to a reasonable term. Also know that marketing plan changes will have an impact. So for example, you do all this wonderful forecasting on what you're going to sell, produce, office visits, etc. But the budget for marketing doesn't come through. And now you have no marketing dollars. Where before you historically had X amount of dollars in marketing, you knew you were always going to have that, and now you don't have it. Or the flip side, all of a sudden now the organization decides to double your marketing efforts, or it decides to do a major promotion on this drug on Super Bowl Sunday, and you weren't anticipating such a thing, and you can get blindsided by that. So know that marketing plans changes will have an impact. And changes in the market conditions can influence the forecast. Again, things that are outside of your control. It could be the weather. So let's say you have a bad bout of weather. Roads are closed. Maybe there's a hurricane, major snow events. All of a sudden your office visits have decreased. Another big one that is always on the horizon for us in healthcare is legal changes, legislative changes, or legislative risk. You might hear that term used. At the whim of our government, things could change dramatically. So know that you can have a lot of external influences that are going to happen to your forecasts. In closing, remember that a forecast is simply a tool that you can use. You want to know how to be able to forecast yourself and also be able to understand the forecasts that are given to you. Know also the risks that are inherent in any forecast. Nothing's going to be perfect. So with that, hopefully this lecture has helped you today with some basic scenarios in forecasting and also understanding the importance and need that any prudent healthcare manager is going to have in understanding forecasting methods. And as always, thank you for watching.